Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos, the radio show, the television show, carried on the AUN TV network, the Conservative Commandos radio network. And if you're not near one of those broadcast towers, never fear, because Al Gore has solved the problem with his amazing internet. We truly are everywhere. You can get us on Roku. You can get us at our own website, ccrshow.com. You can get us on YouTube, you name it. We truly are everywhere. iHeartRadio, we're everywhere. So just want you to remember that, because there's never an excuse for missing an episode of the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landreth, and the good doctor, the doctor of our republic, Nasser Sheikh, is my co-host today. We're glad you're with us. And Dr. Sheikh, I think it's your opportunity to introduce our next distinguished guest.
Well, thank you, George. We have America's psychiatrist here with us. Her name is Dr. Carole Lieberman. She's an MD. She's board-certified Beverly Hills psychiatrist, which probably means she has an unending supply of patients in that area. She's also an award-winning and best-selling author. She served on the clinical faculty of UCLA's Neuropsychiatric Institute for years. When she isn't seeing patients, she's a forensic psychiatrist, and she has Emmy-honored TV personality who's appeared on many of today's shows. If you know, Today Show, Good Morning America, CNN, Fox, you name it, on the Alphabet Network, she has been there. She also hosts 2 radio shows and podcasts, and she has a latest book out, which is for children and their parents and teachers. It's titled Lions and Tigers and Terrorists. Oh my, how to protect your child in a time of terror. So, Dr. Lieberman, we welcome you to the Conservative Commandos radio network here, and we want to talk to you about that article you wrote, 5 Reasons We Should Not Cancel Thanksgiving. So, once again, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much.
Well, Before we get into your article, I wanted to ask you, as a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, what do you see that's happening out there when we are sort of trying to cancel all these things which allow us humans to sort of interact with each other, especially at times of, Thanksgiving and Christmas, or those times when we're supposed to get together, but we have government entities saying, hey, no, we don't want you to mix, stay away. So give us a sense of what is the ramifications of that type of stuff that happens in society.
Well, this is part of the 5 reasons why we shouldn't cancel Thanksgiving, and of course Christmas too. I'm seeing a lot of psychological dysfunction. I'm sure you are too. People are depressed, they're stressed, they're hopeless, they're feeling helpless, they're angry. There are so many things that are going wrong at this time. All having to do with taking away our liberties. And the excuse, of course, the universal excuse, is coronavirus. You have to have a lockdown because of coronavirus. You have to cancel Thanksgiving because of the coronavirus. I mean, it is really scary. I've been thinking about this more and more. And if you were in college and you were asked to write a paper, how to destroy the United States, this is what's happening. We are being destroyed economically. We're being destroyed psychologically. We're being destroyed, take our freedoms. It's George Orwell's 1984. We're being destroyed in terms of our freedoms. I mean, every part of our society, everything that we cherished and that we should be thankful for, is being stripped away from us. In California, for example, they just announced, our wonderful governor in California, Newsom, he is such a hypocrite. Because he's been putting out all these mandates, since the pandemic began, and they change more often than he changes his underwear. And the latest one is he said that on Wednesday, all outdoor restaurants have to close too. Not only indoor dining, you can't do that, but now even outdoor dining. And that is the stupidest. People are doing things, authorities, so-called authorities, are doing these things to try to, because they're overwhelmed by the pandemic and perhaps for more sinister reasons. So if you cancel outdoor dining, not only do you destroy the income of the restaurants and the people who work there and all of that, and of course you destroy the getting together, the enjoyment that we all need. We're desperate for some kind of enjoyment. Not only is that destroyed, but that will mean that more people will be going inside and congregating in bigger groups. Now, what I'm saying as far as don't cancel Thanksgiving, I'm not saying we should have, 50 people in our home for Thanksgiving. Whatever your Thanksgiving, normally is or was going to be this year. That's what I'm saying you should do. And there are certainly healthy, safe ways to do it. You know, we all know, obviously can't have a mask when you're eating at the table, but you can sit outside if the weather permits. You can put little tables all over your house and sit people 6 feet away from each other. I mean, there are different, then you can have the people who are older or otherwise have underlying conditions. You can bring them in by Zoom. I mean, we know these things and we can do these things. We don't have to cancel Thanksgiving.
Well, what is your sense in terms of where, example, like, you know, they're issuing these mandates, for example, in Michigan, you know, Governor Whitmer, you know, she issued these mandates, but even the Supreme Court of Michigan struck it down and said that, you know, the powers that these politicians are sort of saying that they have or usurping, you know, the power, they don't have that, and they overturned their decisions. But the fact of the matter is that there still is a consequence that happens, as you were talking about. Give us a sense, you know, from the clinical side. What are you seeing from some of your patients and whatever that are coming in there that may have been already somewhat depressed prior to COVID or because of this? And are you seeing, for example, that their situations are getting drastically worse? I mean, how are they coping with it? And children too. I mean, how are they coping when they see, you know, mom and dad just sort of freaking out? Your thoughts?
Yes. Between schools being closed, you know, not everywhere, but in the places where schools are closed, that is having a tremendous disruption on the family, particularly, of course, on the kids, who are developing all kinds of psychological problems, you know, just like adults. I mean, they're like the child's version of it psychologically. But, you know, anxiety disorders, depression, PTSD, eating for kids, eating disorders. Lots of kids are going into the medicine cabinets and the liquor cabinets of their parents because they're bored. There are all kinds of things like that. And for adults, of course, you know, one of the things that got us through 9/11, helped us to heal, was social support. What that means is getting together with friends and family, colleagues, people who you care about and they care about you. You tell them your worries and you give them advice. You know, you support them in whatever they're going through. You know, it's an exchange. And that, of course, is the typical kind of thing that happens on the Thanksgiving table. And so, you know, we're being beaten down more and more and more with these mandates. It's just, it's demoralizing, not only depressing, but demoralizing. And it is, as I was starting to say about if you had a college assignment to write how to destroy the United States, and I mean, maybe I don't want people to think that I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't like to think of myself as a conspiracy theorist, but there are so many things happening, one right after the other. Of course, not to mention even the election. We can spend the whole time on that. So many things happening one after the other. It's like you have to think that somebody planned these things. They couldn't all be happening in this order, in this way, by chance.
No, you're absolutely right. Listen, Carole, we've got to take a quick break here. We'd love to hold you over for another segment. Do you have time to hold on for us?
Sure.
Well, thank you. We're speaking with America's psychiatrist, Carole Lieberman. As I said before, she's a board-certified Beverly Hills psychiatrist, and you're watching and listening to us on the Conservative Commandos radio network and on the AUN TV broadcasting system in California. We can be seen on Roku. You can look at 247.com, any of the social media platforms. But right now, we are still a capitalist country, at least for a few more weeks. Hopefully longer than that. But we've got to do some business with our sponsors. So we're going to take you, stay with us until we come back on the other side with my co-host, George Landers, and I'm Dr. Master. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Dr. Carole Lieberman.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos, the radio show, the television show, of course, AUN TV Network, which stands for the America Uncensored News Network, and of course, the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. You can get us on our many broadcast towers. You can get us on iHeartRadio. And of course, you also have Al Gore's Amazing Internet, which brings you ccrshow.com, Roku, you name it, we're everywhere. Maybe not in China, North Korea, and Iran, but everywhere else, because I think they don't like freedom there, so we're probably not welcome. But everywhere else, we're there, and we're glad you're with us. We have been talking and having a great conversation with Dr. Carole Lieberman. She is a medical doctor. She is a psychiatrist and has just a tremendous amount of expertise in this in the medical field about how our brains work, how our minds work, how these things affect us. And my co-host, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, started off with some of those things. And I want to continue that conversation, but because I'm a lawyer, I might look at it just a little bit differently. One, I want to talk about some religious liberty. It seems to me that in America, faith is an important part of our lives. And not, you can be a person who doesn't believe and doesn't have any faith of any particular kind. That's fine. We allow that in our country. There's no punishment for that. But we've also always allowed people to be believers of whatever faith tradition, whether it's Judaism or Christianity, or whether it is Islam or Hindu. There's lots. I mean, America has as many different flavors of religion, as it were, as we do food types. I mean, that's because people come here for what reason? Because they want freedom, and maybe where they came from they didn't fully enjoy it, and so they came here. So to me, I guess the question is how does that impact us as a people to have some of these things start to slip away, or to have people tell us you can't get together with your family, these traditions that you've created that become a bulwark of family support systems?
Well, these things are unconstitutional. Certainly taking away the right to practice your religion. Now, of course, the way they are trying to get around that is by saying, well, you can practice your religion in your home, you can pray, to whatever God. But that's not the same thing, and that's really, not answering the question. To think, there's such randomness going on. I mean, such capriciousness. You can't go to church or to temple or go to a place, especially indoors, where you can practice religion together. But it's perfectly all right for protests to go on in the streets and to loot and everything else. It's what's so frustrating is that the mainstream media, when they talk about these things, they're so careful. They're talking about these same issues, and they're so careful to not talk about the protesters, right? No less the rioters, as far as being the source of most of this contagion. It's a few people sitting in a restaurant outside, or people sitting in your home if you practice, do it safely the way I was mentioning. That is not going to spread the virus. But people, meanwhile, walking in the streets and protesting, or even just like the Lakers, like when the Lakers won, there was this big, wasn't exactly a protest, it was a celebration, but all these people downtown in LA gathered together, maskless, of course, and those are the kinds of things that spread the coronavirus. So this capriciousness is really very depressing. Very, people look at that and they feel, they feel helpless. They feel like this is unfair, but what can I do about it? And religion is very important. That was another thing after 9/11. People flocked to the houses of worship to get spiritual nurturance, and that helped a lot. There were all these statistics about how many more people were attending services and so on. So taking that away is another way to sort of demoralize us.
Interesting. Now, I remember reading an article sometime this summer, and I forget which jurisdiction. I don't know if it was the United States or if it was California, but it wasn't like some small town. It was a large enough jurisdiction that the statistic was somewhat meaningful and scary. And it was something to the effect of, in that given month or 2 month period, they had seen, quote, a year's worth of suicides. In other words, there were a lot more suicides occurring. And I'm not a medical doctor. We've established that. But that sounds like that's not good for America's health. I think suicide is probably bad for your health, but don't take that from a lawyer. I'll let you speak to that.
Well, when the lockdowns came, not when coronavirus first came, but when the lockdowns started being mandated, that's when the calls to suicide hotlines escalated. And needless to say, as all of these things that we've been talking about have been continuing with no end in sight, then there's the vaccine, but that's a whole other issue about that. But so maybe there's an end in sight. I don't want to be, totally depressing. But as far as the people getting drunk on power and having all these mandates, there's not necessarily an end in sight for that. And so it's just people, you look around and think about how, do I really want, I mean, I know this is sad to say, but do I really want to live in this country with all the things that have been changing and that are going to change more if in fact we change presidents, which of course would be a total disaster. People are asking themselves that, do I want to live in a country where there are these things that we've just been talking about, in regard to coronavirus, and all the other things that are on the horizon, the defund the police, the no private property, not being allowed to own private property, all of these things that a portion of the potentially incoming administration want to enact. So, and all, like things, things that we have lost traditions. We need traditions, it's not just fun and so on, but it's to keep us oriented to our life. It's a security blanket. And in regard to Thanksgiving, having this time to be together and to think about all the things that you can be thankful for. I mean, because of all the problems in the world right now, people need to actually have the intention of finding things to be thankful for. Some people will say, oh, what do I have to be thankful for? But so you have to really concentrate on that. And doing that is very helpful, especially when you have kids involved, because that can start off another tradition of every day doing the ritual after Thanksgiving, thinking of all these things that you have to be thankful for. And it's so important to do that for your mental health, because that, people just take a lot of things for granted, but when you start listing them, that is so helpful for your mood and to give you more optimism.
That makes a lot of sense. I have noticed in my life, and I've seen people that, in my opinion, had difficult, challenging lives, and I occasionally caught myself wondering how they could possibly be happy. And yet I found some of them, at least, were very grateful people. And I remember once or twice there was somebody I offered some help to because I thought they're having such a challenging life, and they were so grateful. And they, but what I'm getting at here is, because of their gratitude, they actually did not see their life as hopeless as it appeared to me that it was.
Yes.
And what it told me is there's actually power in gratitude. That gratitude gives you the strength and the power to overcome things that could otherwise be bleak. And I've heard some religious people make that statement, but I'm wondering if you would agree, because your article suggests that might be true scientifically, that gratitude is actually a really empowering, helpful thing. It's not just manners. When I was a kid growing up, my mom would always say, make sure you say thanks to to Bobby's mom when you leave. And I always thought of gratitude as being good manners because I didn't want to embarrass my mom. And then as I've grown older and started to understand the value of it is, my mother wasn't teaching me good manners. She was actually teaching me how to be happy and how to be resilient. And I just wasn't smart enough as a 5-year-old to understand the lesson. But I'll let you kind of hit that, and then I'll ask people how they can follow your work.
Well, yes. Depending upon whether you believe in this or not, and this isn't any particular religion, but it's just, if you believe in the universe, like the power of the universe in general, that there is a power out there that you can call upon, the more grateful you are, like particularly, people are having trouble falling asleep. So if when they lay down to go to sleep and they are worrying about all different things, if they start listing, instead of counting sheep, if they start listing things that they can be grateful for, that they are grateful for, that will not only make them feel better and put them to sleep, make them feel peace, but it will also attract things in the universe to them, because in a sense that the universe feels that you are grateful for the gifts that it is giving you, and it attracts more. Now, I know some people are going to think that's kind of airy-fairy, but try it and see if it works.
Yeah, and my faith tradition tells me that would work. But our time is up. So, Doctor, if you would just tell us how our listeners and our viewers can follow your work and be up on all things Dr. Carole Lieberman, that would be great. Because, they need to get some of this good information all the time?
Sure, I appreciate that. I do a radio show on voiceamerica.com, a podcast radio show. It's called Dr. Carole's Couch. And then I do a second one called The Terrorist Therapist Show. That's a podcast. It's wherever you can find podcasts, and it's also on the RenegadeTalkRadio.com website. And I have websites, drcarole.com, which is drcarole.com. Those, and then of course you mentioned my books. So.
That's right, Lions, Tigers, and Terrorists. Oh my.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a good book to help your kids understand how to deal with those things. So thanks so much for spending this time with us. We really appreciate it. We do want to, because we're up against the break, tell our viewers and our listeners, this is the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landreth. He's Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and we will be right back.